Prologue. On the north side of Cambridge, Massachusetts, where brick buildings huddle against centuries of New England wind, and the Charles River glides past half-submerged pilings, stands Mather Library. Its Gothic turrets and stained glass windows make it look more like a cathedral than a place where undergraduates cram for exams. It was built in 1832 by Silas Mather, a recluse and scholar who donated his fortune and personal collection of rare volumes to the fledgling university on the condition that his library remain open day and night to all who sought knowledge with true hearts. Legend has it that Mather wrote those last words in iron gall ink, pricking his finger to add a drop of blood to the contract. Students joked about the library being haunted long before I worked there. They told stories about hushed voices that rose between the stacks when no one else was around, about books appearing and disappearing on their own, about a pale woman who wandered the halls at closing, her fingers running along spines as if she were tasting the titles. Some swore they'd gone down one aisle and found themselves in a place that was not the library at all. A beach, a battlefield, a dimly lit parlor, and then blinked, and it was gone. Others laughed and rolled their eyes. Final stress, they said. Too much Red Bull. My name is Emma Harper. When I started my sophomore year at Mather University, I needed money. My financial aid covered tuition, but not food, not books, not the little emergencies that come with living in a world where your wallet is never quite full. A work-study job at the library seemed ideal. Quiet, academic, safe. Mrs. Cartwright, the head librarian, interviewed me in her office, flanked by glass cases of ancient manuscripts. "We're open 24 hours, she told me, her spectacles catching the morning light. "You'll work the overnight shift twice a week. That means reshelving, checking in books, and assisting any late-night patrons. No sleeping on the job. And one other thing, if you hear whispering in the stacks, ignore it." I laughed, thinking she was making a reference to the campus myths. She did not smile. "I'm serious, Miss Harper. Some books demand your attention. They are used to being read in the light of candles and hearths. They do not take kindly to fluorescent bulbs and laptops. Do your job. Do not answer them. Should you find a book that isn't in the catalog, bring it to me." She slid a key across the desk. "This opens the special collection room in the sub-basement. You will not use it unless I instruct you to. Understand?" I nodded, pocketed the key, and thought nothing more of it. That night, I clocked in at 11:55 p.m. The library at midnight was a different world. The grand reading room, its vaulted ceiling painted with constellations, its tables arranged in 2 long rows, was deserted. Dust motes floated in columns of moonlight. The scent of old paper and polish filled the air. The only sounds were the soft hum of the HVAC and the occasional rustle as a page turned somewhere in the depths. I set about my tasks, rolling a cart stacked with returns through the aisles, reshelving them alphabetically. The whispers started at 2 in the morning. They were faint at first, like the susurration of pages. I assumed it was the ventilation system. As I moved deeper into the stacks, they grew clearer. A susurrant voice murmured my name. "Emma!" I froze. My heart thudded. I turned, expecting to see someone behind me. A prank? A fellow student? A co-worker? No one was there. Shadows stretched long between the shelves. The whisper came again, from my left this time, from the books themselves. "Emma, read me." My rational mind told me this was exhaustion. I hadn't worked past midnight since high school. I ignored the voice and continued pushing the cart, humming under my breath. The whispers followed. Read me. Remember. Let me inside your skin. As strange as it sounds, the voice did not feel malevolent. It felt needy. It tugged at me, not with force, but with curiosity. I glanced at the spines around me. They were the usual suspects. Textbooks on botany, volumes of poetry, bound theses. Then on the bottom shelf, tucked between a dictionary and a copy of Moby Dick, was a volume I didn't recognize. It had no title on its spine. Its cover was made of a dark, leathery material, embossed with symbols I couldn't decipher. It pulsed under my gaze, as if it were breathing. I reached down before I could stop myself. The whisper exhaled in my ear. Thank you. Chapter 1. The book that wasn't there. The book was heavier than it looked. Its pages were thick, edges gilded with tarnished gold. As I opened it, a scent like cedar and rain drifted up. The text was handwritten in a language I didn't recognize, long looping letters with dots and accents. Between the lines were illustrations, a map of a city that resembled Cambridge, but with canals instead of streets. A diagram of a human heart connected to roots that burrowed into soil, a tree whose leaves were eyes. Bring it to me, the voice whispered. It seemed to come from the page itself, though my eyes saw only ink. My fingers tingled. I closed the book quickly, my heartbeat fluttering like a trapped bird. Mrs. Cartwright's voice echoed in my memory. Should you find a book that isn't in the catalog, bring it to me. I slid the book onto my cart, covered it with a few larger volumes, and resumed shelving. The whispers faded, replaced by the ordinary silence of a sleeping library. At 3, I wheeled my cart back to the circulation desk. The library was empty. I checked the computer. The system clock glowed green. I logged the returned books and looked up the mysterious volume's barcode. The screen flashed. Item not found. Goosebumps prickled my arms. I carried the book to the elevator that led to the sub-basement. It was an old cage elevator, with a gate you had to pull shut before it would move. The fluorescent light flickered. The ride down felt longer than it should have, as if the elevator descended through more floors than existed. When the doors rattled open, I stepped into a concrete corridor lit by bare bulbs. Pipes ran along the ceiling. The smell of damp stone and old paper was stronger here. The special collection room stood at the end of the hall, its door heavy and steel. I unlocked it with the key Mrs. Cartwright had given me. Inside, the air was colder, the lighting softer. Shelves held leather-bound tomes behind glass. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, empty. Place it here, the whisper urged. I hesitated. The room felt sacred, like a museum, but also like a tomb. I set the book on the pedestal. As I did, a sigh rustled through the room, as if the other books were exhaling. The whisper fell silent. I locked the door and hurried back to the main floor. Mrs. Cartwright was waiting by the circulation desk. Her gray hair was pinned neatly back. Her face was unreadable. "You heard them," she said. It was not a question. "Yes," I admitted. One of the books. It wasn't in the system. It whispered. I took it to special collection. Mrs. Cartwright's gaze softened slightly. "You did well. Not everyone does. Curiosity is both a blessing and a curse here. The books, how to put it, some of them are hungry." Silas Mather collected more than first editions. He was a practitioner of things best left unnamed. Those volumes are bound with more than leather. They seek readers. Once read, they do not like to be forgotten. "What happens if someone reads them?" I asked. "They remember you," she said simply. "And they follow you. They whisper for the rest of your life. They seep into your dreams. That is why we keep them locked away. Why do you think we allow students to work the overnight shift? Young minds are less likely to hear the whispers. She paused. Go home. Sleep. Tomorrow, forget what you heard. She turned away, the conversation clearly over. Chapter 2. Voices in the walls. I did not forget. I couldn't. The whispering book lingered in my mind, like the afterimage of a bright light. I dreamed of the map it held, of walking down a street lined with canals, while eyes watched from windows. The next night, I returned to the library with trepidation. Midnight found me sorting periodicals. The air was cool. A few students hunched over laptops in the corners. The whispers did not start immediately, but I felt a presence, as if the library itself was aware of me. Around 2, I heard voices, not from the stacks, but from the walls themselves. They were faint, like sound traveling through pipes. I leaned closer. The plaster was cold against my ear. He took us, a childlike voice said. He promised knowledge. A second voice, older, replied. We gave everything. We became words. I jerked back. My heart hammered. I considered reporting it to campus security or Mrs. Cartwright, but something held me back. The voices sounded desperate. I pressed my ear again. Who took you? I whispered. Silas, the older voice breathed. He built this place as a beacon, to call us. We came willingly. We did not know what price he'd ask. He bound us to pages. We are the books. I stumbled away, nearly knocking over a stack of journals. If what they said was true, then the rare books weren't just volumes of parchment and ink, but vessels for trapped souls. It sounded insane. It felt real. Why me? I whispered into the dim. Because you listen, the child voice said. So many do not. They are deaf to us. We need someone who hears. Someone who can open the door below and let us out. Door below. My hand drifted to the key in my pocket. The special collection room. Mrs. Cartwright said not to use it. She serves Silas, the older voice hissed. She keeps us contained. She believes she is protecting the world. But we are rotting in these bindings. Help us. My head spun. Moral quandaries clashed in my mind. If these books held souls, freeing them seemed righteous. But what if they were lying? What if Silas Mather had bound demons, not innocent people? What if opening whatever door lay beneath the library unleashed something worse? How? I asked. Find the codex, the older voice said. It is a key bound in words. It lies in the deepest stack. Do not let her see you. Her? I asked, but the voices faded. A cart squeaked somewhere in the distance. I realized my break was almost over. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog of whisperings, and returned to my duties. Chapter 3. The Codex. The deepest stack in Mather Library was in the sub-basement, beyond the special collection room. I had never been there. The key Mrs. Cartwright had given me only opened the special collection door. I wasn't sure I wanted to go deeper, yet curiosity gnawed at me like a mouse in the walls. The voices had planted a seed. If there truly were souls trapped in books, if Silas Mather had used his library for dark purposes, didn't I have a responsibility to free them? The next night, I waited until Mrs. Cartwright left for her brief nap in her office, a habit I had observed over weeks. At 1:15, her office light dimmed. I took the key, my heart pounding, and descended to the sub-basement. The special collection room looked as it had before, shelves gleaming, the pedestal empty. I glanced around, then crossed to the far wall. There was a faint seam in the stonework, as if a hidden door had been sealed. I pressed my hands against it. It did not budge. "Use the book," a whisper floated from behind me. I turned. The dark, leathery volume I had placed on the pedestal lay on a lower shelf now, as if it had moved itself. Its cover pulsed. I took it carefully. It felt warm. On its back cover, I found a pattern of indentations. When I aligned those indentations with a similar pattern on the stone seam, there was a soft click. The wall slid back, revealing narrow stairs descending into darkness. The air that wafted up was cold and stale. My skin prickled. I hesitated, then pulled a flashlight from my pocket. The beam cut a white path through blackness. I stepped down. The stairwell twisted, the stone walls damp. The smell of mildew grew stronger. After what felt like 20 steps, I emerged into a cavernous room lined with shelves. These shelves were different from those in the library above. They were made of rough-hewn wood. The books they held were in various states of decay. Some had covers eaten away by mold. Others were wrapped in cloth. The floor was uneven stone. The ceiling dripped. My breath misted in the cold. A faint glow emanated from a table in the center of the room. On the table lay a book unlike any I had seen. Its cover shimmered, as if made of mother of pearl. It seemed to be both there and not there, flickering around the edges. As I approached, I saw that the pages inside were blank. Blank until I touched them. Words appeared under my fingertips, like ink rising to the surface of paper. The Codex, a whisper filled my mind. It was not like the other whispers. It was clearer, resonant. "You found me." "Who are you?" I whispered. "I am what remains of those bound here," the Codex replied. "I am their memories, their knowledge. Silas thought binding us would give him power. He could not contain us all. We leaked. We merged. We became this." "Why am I here?" I asked. "Because you were the first in decades to hear us. Mrs. Cartwright chose workers with ears too full of music, minds too full of themselves. You are curious. You ask questions. You listen." I could not deny that. My mother had often told me that my curiosity would either make me a great scholar or get me into trouble. Maybe both. "What happens if I free you?" I asked. "What is beyond that door?" "A gate," the Codex whispered. "A thin place between here and elsewhere. Silas opened it and lured us through with promises of knowledge. We became his collection. He thought he could control the gate. He was wrong. It needs caretakers. It needs readers. That is why Mather Library must always be open. The gate hungers. It feeds on secrets, memories, whispers." "If I open the gate, will the souls leave?" I asked. "Some," the Codex said. "Some will return to where they belong. Some will fade. Some will linger. And something else may come through. That is the risk." "What about Mrs. Cartwright?" I asked. "Does she know?" "She knows enough to fear," the Codex replied. "She believes containing us keeps the world safe. She is both jailer and guardian. She is aged, but does not die. The library keeps her. If you open the gate, you will take her place." A chill raced down my spine. "I don't want to be trapped here." "No one does," the Codex said softly. "But if the gate is not tended, it will expand. It will swallow streets, towns, rivers. The whispers will fill every book. The world will forget itself." I stared at the shimmering pages. The weight of responsibility pressed on me. open the gate and free souls, but risk releasing something worse, and perhaps become the gatekeeper myself. Leave things as they were and condemn countless voices to whisper in bindings forever. Was I even qualified to make such a choice? I was 19. I liked detective novels and iced coffee. Yet here I was, holding an ancient entity in my hands, being asked to make a decision that could alter the fabric of reality. Chapter 4. Choices and Consequences. I did what I always did when faced with an impossible choice. I procrastinated. I told the Codex I needed time. It pulsed in my hands. Time is thin here, it warned. The gate widens every year. The cracks spread. Choose soon. I returned the Codex to the table and retreated up the stairs, sealing the hidden door behind me. I spent the next day reading everything I could find about Silas Mather. The university archives held letters in which he described his library as a vessel for knowledge beyond mortal reach. He corresponded with occultists, alchemists, and theologians. One letter mentioned binding spirits to parchment to preserve wisdom. Another hinted at a rift he had discovered beneath Cambridge, an opening between our world and another where ideas take shape as beings. I confronted Mrs. Cartwright the next evening. We sat in her office. Her face was lined with exhaustion. "You know what's beneath the library," I said. "You know about the gate." She sighed. "So you heard them. And you went below. I suppose it was inevitable. Curiosity is a strong pull." "Why didn't you tell me?" I demanded. "Why keep working here if you're just locking people away?" "Because someone must," she said quietly. "If we close Mather Library, the gate will feed on the town. If we do nothing, the whispers will crawl up from the basement and consume minds." Silas made a pact. One librarian to tend the gate, one to catalog the whispers. I chose this. I was a freshman like you when I heard them. My mentor warned me. She chose to leave. I stayed, because someone always must. "What happens if I open the gate?" I asked. "Will it close again?" Mrs. Cartwright's eyes were tired. "I don't know. The Codex offers freedom but rarely speaks of cost. If you open it, perhaps the souls will go. Perhaps something worse will come through. The world is built on gates we cannot see. Some are meant to remain closed." "I don't want this," I whispered, "but I can't ignore them." She nodded. "No, you have to decide. That is the curse of hearing. I cannot decide for you. I will not stop you. If you choose to open the gate, I will help as best I can. If you choose to leave, I will find another." I am tired, Emma. I am old, though the mirror does not show it. The library holds time differently. My hair should be white. It is not. The gate leaks into me. Her confession shook me. She was trapped, kept young by the gate's influence, condemned to listen to whispers forever. It wasn't a duty she enjoyed. It was a prison she embraced because she believed the alternative was worse. Could I do the same? Would I be strong enough to endure decades of hushed voices pleading in the walls? That night, I walked the stacks, running my fingers along spines. Each one hummed faintly. Each one held a story, not just the words printed inside, but possibly the essence of a person bound by Silas's hubris. I thought of those voices, the child and the elder. I thought of Mrs. Cartwright, her life consumed by this place. I thought of the world outside, blissfully unaware of the thin line between it and oblivion. At 3 a.m, I made my decision. I descended to the hidden room. The Codex sat on its table, shimmering. "I will open the gate," I whispered, "but only if you promise to close behind you and take Silas's bindings with you. No souls left behind. Nothing malignant comes through. The codex pulsed. Promises with gates are tricky, it said, but we will try. We will pull as many as we can. The rest, it trailed off. There will always be whispers somewhere. And me? I asked. Will I be trapped? If you stay by choice, you can close it, the codex replied. If you walk away, it will remain open. Mrs. Cartwright will not survive the opening. The gate will need someone. I thought of my life, my mother, my friends, my classes. I thought of the weight of being a gatekeeper. I thought of the voices begging for release. Selfishness warred with altruism. Then I thought of Mrs. Cartwright, a young woman once, making the same choice. I realized none of us were equipped to decide the fate of a supernatural rift, but someone had to. And maybe, just maybe, freeing those voices would be enough. Okay, I whispered. Show me. Chapter 5. The Gate. The codex instructed me to gather certain items. A candle from Silas's original desk, ink made with his iron gall recipe, and the first contract he signed with the university. These were relics kept in the special collection. Mrs. Cartwright watched me gather them with resigned expression. When I was ready, she accompanied me into the hidden room. She carried a small knife. In case, she said. I wasn't sure if the knife was for defense or ritual, and I didn't ask. The codex lay open on the table. Its blank pages had filled with symbols, a circle within a square, lines connecting runes. In the center of the room, a faint shimmer hung in the air like heat above asphalt. As I approached, the shimmer solidified into a vertical ripple. Through it, I glimpsed something vast and dark, like the space between stars, but with currents of light flowing through. Whispers spilled out, a cacophony of voices layered upon each other. They were not words, but emotions. Longing, sorrow, hope. Draw the circle with the ink, the codex instructed. Place the contract in the center. Light the candle. Then cut your finger and add a drop of blood. Blood magic, of course. Silas's pact had begun with blood. It would end with it. I dipped a quill in the iron gall ink and drew the circle and symbols on the stone floor, following the pattern exactly. Mrs. Cartwright placed the university contract in the center. I lit the candle. The flame flickered blue. The room's temperature dropped. The whispers intensified, swirling around us like wind. Now, the codex whispered. Your blood. I pricked my finger with the knife Mrs. Cartwright offered. A drop of red welled. I let it fall onto the contract. The ink circle glowed faintly. The ripple in the air widened. A gust of cold rushed through, carrying the scent of ozone and ancient paper. The whispers rose to a crescendo. The candle flame shot up, then extinguished, leaving only the glow from the ink. Shapes emerged from the ripple. Wisps of light, coalescing into human forms, translucent, fragile. Faces formed and dissolved. Hands reached. They streamed toward the circle, paused at its edge, then passed through. As each wisp crossed the boundary, it shimmered brighter, then vanished with a sigh. Tears blurred my vision. Voices I had heard in the walls, childish giggles, tired murmurs, passed around me, brushing my skin with cold fingers. A sense of gratitude filled the air like incense. Thank you, they whispered. Remember us. Behind them, something else stirred. A shadow, deeper than the darkness around it. It pressed against the ripple, testing. It did not have a shape I could comprehend. It was absence. The air chilled further. The codex trembled. Close it, it hissed. Now. "How?" I shouted over the cacophony. "Break the circle," Mrs. Cartwright yelled, grabbing my arm. "It severs the connection." I hesitated. More wisps were approaching. If I broke the circle, they would be trapped. If I didn't, the shadow might come through. It pressed harder. A tendril slipped through, a line of darkness that sucked light. My skin prickled where it touched the air. "Emma!" Mrs. Cartwright screamed, pain in her voice. I looked. The shadow had wrapped around her ankle, creeping up. It left frost in its wake. She looked at me, tears in her eyes. "Do it!" I dragged my foot across the ink circle. The line broke. The circle dimmed. The ripple snapped shut like a wound. The shadow's tendril recoiled with a sound like tearing cloth. A gust of wind knocked me to the ground. The candle relit for a second, then went dark. Silence crashed over the room. Mrs. Cartwright lay on the floor. Her skin was pale, her hair now fully white. She looked older, decades older. Lines etched her face. She smiled weakly. "You did it," she whispered. "They're free." Her eyes closed. Her chest rose and fell once, twice, then stilled. I crawled to her, tears streaming. She was cold. The shadow had taken something from her. The codex lay nearby, its pages blank again. Its cover pulsed faintly. "What happens now?" I whispered. "The gate is closed," it murmured. "For now. The souls are free. Silas's bindings are broken. The shadow will wait. It always waits. Another crack will form somewhere else. But you have bought time." The book's glow dimmed. "You must decide whether to stay or leave. The library needs a guardian." I sat on the cold stone, Mrs. Cartwright's hand in mine. The weight of my decision pressed on me. I could leave, return to my classes, my life, pretend this was a nightmare. The gate was closed. My responsibility ended. Or I could stay, take Mrs. Cartwright's place, ensure the gate remained closed, watch for cracks, listen to whispers, sacrifice my life for the quiet safety of others. Epilogue. Echoes. I graduated from Mather University with a degree in literature and a knowledge of things my classmates would never believe. I did not stay in the library after that night. I chose to leave. Selfishness? Perhaps. Self-preservation? Certainly. I told myself the gate was closed and would remain so. I burned Silas Mather's contract. I closed the hidden door. I locked the special collection and gave Mrs. Cartwright a proper burial in the cemetery behind the university chapel, under a tree that whispered when the wind blew. I did not take her place. Part of me will always wonder if that was the right choice. The whispers are quieter now. Sometimes, late at night, when I walk past the library's stained glass windows, I hear a faint "thank you" carried on the breeze. Other times, when the wind is just right, I hear a low hum, a reminder that cracks appear in unexpected places. I have spent my life listening. I became a writer, weaving stories that hint at the unseen. I never forgot the weight of the key in my pocket, the feeling of ink under my fingers, the sight of souls passing through light. Occasionally, a student on campus will mention hearing a whisper in the stacks, a voice that says, "Emma," and I will smile sadly and tell them to follow Mrs. Cartwright's advice. Ignore it. Or perhaps not. Perhaps listening is what keeps the world from falling apart. Silas Mather's portrait still hangs in the reading room. He stares down with eyes too alive for a man long dead. The plaque beneath reads, "Knowledge is power." It does not mention the cost. The library stands, its walls thick, its turrets tall, its books humming softly when no one pays attention. The gate below is closed, But gates, like secrets, have a way of opening again. I carry that knowledge like a whisper that never quite fades,